Welcome to the Name Five Players podcast. I'm Tony Wetmore.
I'm Diane Raddick.
And I'm Cassie Narkis.
And welcome to our very first episode. We are so excited to take you along on our journeys as we navigate being a woman in the sports industry. And we're excited to show you a little bit about ourselves and who we are and what we expect to show you on this podcast. Diane, how about you start with a little bit about yourself?
Awesome. All right. So I'm Diane. I'm from the University of Florida. So I reside in Gainesville, Florida. I'm a part of ESPN Gainesville, which is an affiliate of ESPN. I do a bunch of fun little things there. I do some on-air talent, some social media content, and of course, a little bit of writing along with radio work. And then I also work for the University of Florida's football team, where we do like recruiting and everything fun with that. Cassie, I hear you're a little bit similar to me. What are you up to?
I would say Diane and I are pretty much carbon copies of each other when it comes to our career paths. Obviously, I'm also We're twins. We are twins. We pretty much do the same exact stuff. I'm also located in Gainesville, Florida at UF. I'm also in ESPN Gainesville. Yeah, peep the sweatshirt. If you guys are watching and not just listening, she is wearing a Florida Gators sweatshirt right now. But yeah, we have to do all the ESPN Gainesville stuff as well. We actually just created the first fully student-run radio show at ESPN this year called The Sports Lab. Little shameless plug there. So look us up if you would like to listen. But we are both on every Monday, and we just talk your traditional sports, Gator sports, local sports, Tampa Bay area as well. And then I also do recruiting for the University of Florida football team as well. But yeah. You forgot to tell everybody where you're from, though, because I feel like people that listen, when they're only listening, they're going to recognize the difference in your voice. Where are you from, Dan?
So I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was born in Florida, though, so I'm kind of back to my roots at the University of Florida, but I am what I'd like to consider raised in Dallas, Texas, so...
Your roots are Texas. Don't even say your roots are actually Florida. You were born there.
No, literally. Tony scared me. I thought you said I rooted for Texas. It's horns down. It is horns down.
And speaking of Texas, that'll be my transition into who I am. I go to Oklahoma State University, so I'm currently in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Go Pokes. I had to teach Diane and Cassie to do that when I went to visit in Gainesville in September. I work for Orange Power Studios, which is our media department at Oklahoma State in athletics. And so I help run the video board shows or produce the ESPN Plus broadcasts for our home events for soccer, men's, women's basketball, wrestling, football, and baseball, sometimes softball for ESPN Plus. And I just kind of help out with whatever is needed. I run the press conferences after the games, during media availabilities, after practice, and just whenever we have something to talk about for athletics. I also do some on-camera work, so I interview our athletes after the practice, sometimes after games if I'm lucky, and just create content, get to storytell, and I absolutely love it. And that's part of why we wanted to start this podcast, was because we all want to be storytellers and to share other stories and learn them for ourselves. So we'll take you along on our journey of meeting people in this industry, because it's an amazing industry. I think we can all agree that everybody has so many things to say, and we're not going to run out of guests, that's for sure. But a little bit about how we all met. I actually met Diane and GroupMe, and then we ended up in a Snapchat group chat together for sports industry networking, and then somehow connected along the way. I think I slid up on her story about dogs once, and then we started
into the DMs
there. And then she introduced me to Cassie when I went to Florida, and now we're on a podcast. So
yes, it's really funny though, because Tony and I didn't even meet doing sports stuff. We technically, our first thing we did together was go to a tiny little country concert at a tiny little country bar here in town. So yeah. It's kind of weird when you like meet someone in the sports industry that's not like at a game or at something. Tony and I technically met at a country concert. So
yes,
we're getting
into anything about me. Me at a country concert was rare. That was my first one and last so far. Would go back, I was actually looking at pictures of the three of us to put as our like banner, but the best one was the one with the country singer in it. So I just was like, we're gonna have to figure something else out.
We need to like put in that picture, because It's golden.
It
It's
is a good picture.
golden.
All right,
Or
well,
the picture we took
started.
or the picture we took of you wearing the shirt with his face on it.
Yeah, did put the shirt on with his face, his name, full fangirl experience. Had to.
I got a question for you.
Okay.
So since you've been to the swamp and you've experienced it on game day, what on a scale of 1 to 10, like where do you rate it? Like 1 being like, oh, I'd never go again, and 10 being like, dang.
Well, so 10 is Boone Pickens Stadium for me. Nothing will ever be past Boone Pickens Stadium. I bleed orange. So as much as I love my time in the swamp, I have to put BPS at 10 and nothing else. But I put it at a 9. It's a close second.
Okay.
I did really like it. The atmosphere was great. I loved when all the lights went out and everyone got their flashlights out for Tom Petty. That was a really cool experience, and I think that game was a blowout, right? They played McNeese State, and so I don't remember if it was a shutout, but they killed them. And then the car ride home with a few too many people in the back seat, but got to bond, and then went
That's
back
what makes it
and
fun.
Yes.
watched OSU on TV because they were playing in Arizona that night. So on the East Coast, that game didn't end until 2:30. So Diane and Cassie went to sleep, which is fine. True, I was watching still, but yeah. But the swamp was great. Loved the energy. I had never tailgated before. That was an experience in itself. I'd never been to a frat party, let alone a frat house, and went
You
to
had
many that day. So.
Very authentic SEC
Yes.
experience.
And we sent her away with a few of our friends because we work game days
That
with
is true.
recruiting. So we could
Yeah. Yeah, it's because we don't tailgate either. So it was
Yeah.
kind of funny that we're like, yeah, Tony, come to town for a football game, but for the first 5 hours of the day, you're not going to be with
Yeah.
us.
And like there was one point,
I do the same thing. If someone came to me, I would have to be like, well, go find somebody. I don't know. But
no, and we left her like for a minute because we had a recruiting meeting where we were getting our credentials for the season and all the shirts and stuff. But you saw our newsroom and you met all of them. What did you think of that?
well, I think the craziest story we should talk about Zach. We should bring Zach on the pod.
Zach.
Diane and Zach have a really funny friendship. So I'm like considered the nice one. Like I'm the one that talks to Zach and I'm like nice to him. And then Diane and Zach see each other in the newsroom and they literally look at each other like this.
Yeah.
It's the funniest thing ever.
He's a jump scared of me. Like
Anyway, yeah, tell them about Zach, Tony. Tell them
He's
about
not here to defend himself. We can't talk about him.
Right.
don't care.
Good.
Next.
Zach, when you see this, please still come on the podcast. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, I can
So basically, I get picked up from the airport by Diane and Cassie. We go straight to the journalism school and we walk in. They're introducing me to people, whatever. Long story short, there was pizza upstairs, and we just really wanted to get this pizza. It was for an event that they hadn't attended. I obviously hadn't attended. And somehow we did get in, got some pizza. And along the way, one of our classmates, Zach, had been saying he wanted pizza and to get him some. So somehow he ended up with a whole box and he needed a ride home. And so Diane was like, all right, we're going. They happened to live near each other, which was kind of crazy. And now the whole time that he gets in the car, they're talking about how they live at the same place. I am thinking, oh, they're really good friends. They know each other super well. And that apparently was not the case. They just, were that never been in the car with them, right?
we were like mutuals. We knew each other. We were kind of friends, but I had never hung out one-on-one like together. We never really
this is back in September, so this is way before we started the radio show, which is he is also on. So now we're like much closer than we were in September. But at that point, I think we only really knew of each other like from the newsroom, and we never really hung out or anything like that. But Diane and I just love living for the plot.
Yeah,
we love it's all an experience.
He asked for the ride home, and Diane's like, sure. So he gets in the car and we're talking about pizza. Now I'm from Connecticut originally. So I guess I didn't say that earlier, but I'm from Connecticut, New Haven, pizza capital of the world, best pizza, maybe not world. I'll say nation, because I'm sure Italy has
in Tony's world.
In my world, when I'm a picky eater, New Haven pizza. So Zach says something about, oh, I'm from, where the best pizza is. So, I know pizza. And I was like, well, I'm from where the best pizza is. And I'm thinking he's going to say Chicago because everyone in Chicago tries to fight me on this. And I'm like, whatever. And so then he says Connecticut, and I ask what town, and he says my hometown, and I said me too, and he was like no way, and so I had to show him my license. He didn't believe me. I showed him my license, and he was like, what? So then he starts listing off people that he knows that I went to school with, including one of my best friend's boyfriends as his best friend from Connecticut. And I was like, wait a minute. So we call him, and now all these people are getting added to this FaceTime, and everyone's like, why is Tony with Zach? Like, what is happening? How do you guys know each other? And we're like, we don't. We're just in the back of this car together. Like, it was just such a funny and just
they had hidden it up in the back of Diane's car.
And
no.
Just sitting up front, like, what have we created?
No,
like,
yeah.
what is going on?
Because I'm realizing too, I'm like Tony and Zach at this point are like closer than like us and Zach. I'm like, oh.
I was like, oh, and she's like, I come to Connecticut every summer, or like, oh, it's like Diane and Cass are gonna have to come up because again, at this point, I'm thinking y'all are so close. So I'm like, the four of us can all hang out in Connecticut, like, which now we probably can. We should plan that. But at that point,
we can do an episode there.
Oh yes.
Oh, we have to plan this. We're making it happen. But anyways, but it's just, that just goes to show how small the sports world is. I mean, you know, I had no idea. So story about that is he ended up moving after, I believe, elementary school. So we didn't go to middle school or high school together. So that's why I didn't know him. We had never met, but we knew all the same people. It was because he knew where we would have gone to school together. But it's just kind of crazy, you know, again, small world. The world is small and the sports industry is so much smaller. I'm sure everyone we have on here will have some story about someone else we know. So it's just kind of crazy.
The sports world is like the invisible string theory.
No,
everyone's connected.
Literally.
Yeah.
No. We need to tell about how we met.
Yeah.
So you mentioned invisible string, Diane. We have the weirdest invisible string story ever, and it honestly blows my mind to this day.
Yeah.
So Diane and I actually did not. Also, why do I only meet sports people not in sports settings?
Yeah,
I
you
don't
don't.
know. I met Tony at a concert, and I did not meet Diane through sports either. So let's go with, what is it? Your freshman year?
Yeah, our freshman year.
So I know.
Yeah.
So Diane did not always go to UF. She started off at our little community college in Gainesville, Santa Fe, and one of our friends, who was not my friend at the time, MJ, was one of Diane's really close friends for a few years.
Yes.
And so then
I met him when I moved to Gainesville. Okay, fun story. I created a Tinder account because I didn't know anyone and I wanted to become friends with people. And I was like, oh, he looks like a good friend.
So yeah, she makes all of her really good friends on the Tinder.
Yes.
But so they met and they were friends for a few years. And then my sophomore year, we're in the same grade as well. We didn't mention that. We're all seniors, by the way. We're all graduating,
we're
which
old.
is scary, but we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, so my sophomore year, her sophomore year, I was at UF and so was MJ, and MJ is also a journalism student. So we met in our reporting class. And so we had our own like little friend group going on there. And so I met MJ. Diane already knew MJ for a year and a half at this point. Never at any point in my friendship with MJ or Diane's friendship with MJ did he ever say, oh, Cassie, or oh, Diane, I have a friend who's also doing sports. You should meet her.
Mind you, I traveled with MJ. I brought him to Texas, like to home for spring break.
Like, this is
and I
friend.
went to Alabama with him to visit his family. He never once mentioned us to each other.
These are like really good friends with MJ. Like we were always hanging out. MJ and I would always hang out with our friend group in our reporting class at like our friends' apartments. Like I was always with MJ my sophomore year. Always. So then my sophomore spring, I joined a sorority, Alpha Phi, because I was like, COVID kind of screwed with the whole friend making freshman year. And at that point, you already kind of feel a little behind. So I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do the sorority thing, make a few friends that way, and like maybe get my good friend group started. So I did that my sophomore spring. Moving into junior fall, so our first semester of junior year, is when we do like fall recruitment. And so I was obviously already in the sorority, so I was on the other side of it. Diane at this point got accepted to UF and was also rushing a sorority and was trying to pick what sorority she wanted to be in.
Yes.
So to make a long story short, Diane ended up going Alpha Phi as well. And but I still didn't know her. I still didn't know her yet. Like, she's a brand new member. Like, I don't really know her. Like, I heard her name maybe once or twice during recruitment, but I obviously have never heard of her through MJ. So why would I know the name Diane? So then a few weeks after that, I want to say it was like the week before your birthday.
Yeah, because you're at my.
I want to say it was a week before your birthday. We were having dinner at our chapter facility, and we were just kind of, chilling, sitting on the floor, eating our dinner. We love our floor time, by the way.
That's what we're doing
actually
now.
Sitting on the floor right now. But yeah, so we were sitting on the floor eating our dinner, and we were just kind of talking, and we very quickly realized we have a mutual friend, MJ, and we're like, wait a minute, because we were talking about, we have all this stuff in common. We're both in sports.
Yeah.
We're both doing ESPN stuff. Like, we're very similar, like, in personalities, and we're like, get to the point of like our friends. I don't even remember how his name came up, but it just did.
I think we were both like, oh, we have like this friend, and I think it was like MJ, and you're like, oh, I have an MJ too. I'm like,
I think we just kind of figured out that we both had the same friend, MJ. So we FaceTime him, and we're like, MJ, what the heck?
Yeah.
Like, why have you never introduced us to each other?
He kept us from each other.
He did gatekeep us from each other. He wanted to keep he wanted to keep us for himself, I guess.
Yeah.
But now we're roommates, and we're in the same sorority, and we're do ESPN, and we do football together. I don't know how she's not sick of me.
I don't know how you're not sick of me, bro.
What do you mean I am?
I can't.
Anyways,
but yeah, no.
So actually, so I do want to say though, like, yeah, that's how we met, but we actually had an encounter our freshman year because Scooter Magruder, big social media guy. This is our invisible string theory, like to a T, vibes. So UF does these things where like they bring in like guest speakers, you can talk to them, yada yada yada, whatever. Because it was COVID, it was online, and they had that opportunity with Scooter Magruder, and he's a UF alum, and my friend, because I was not at UF yet, so I didn't have a UF ID. So I asked my friend for his ID. So I faked it to get into this thing because I wanted to talk to him because networking. It's like,
well, you forgot to mention Scooter is also not only a Gator alum, but he's also a very large Cowboys fan, which you are.
Right.
As well.
So like, go Gators, go Cowboys, all the above, like all the best things in the world. Yes, exactly.
And me, I was just bored at home, and I was like, oh, Scooter Magruder.
Yeah,
I've heard of his name before. Let me just hop on this Zoom.
Yes. So I jumped through all the hoops and landed on this Zoom. And what's funny is because there's a picture of it. He screenshotted like everyone that was there and stuff. And we did not figure this out till like years later when I found this picture.
A few months ago.
Yes, I found this picture, and in the picture is me and Cassie, like our screens. And I'm like, our freshman year.
Like, this is before we even knew each other existed.
Yeah.
Like, before MJ. Like, that's the original.
We've literally just always been like, we're doing the same thing, literally. Speaking of that, though, speaking of like doing the same thing, what is everyone's career goals? Tony, you? What you want to do?
Yeah, I would like to be an on-camera analyst. Sideline reporting helps or is in my interest as well, but main goal would be at the desk. I'd love to be like a Katie Nolan and have my own sports talk show. I know she doesn't have it anymore, but Always Late with Katie Nolan was something that I watched every week and I loved it. And just to be able to sit down and have my own segments and bring guests on, kind of like this a little bit too.
I was gonna say, this is our own sports talk show right here.
Yeah, exactly. She had this one segment where it was Where is J.R. Smith? And she was like going around trying to find J.R. Smith. And it just, I don't remember why that stuck with me, but just something like that to be able to come up with like silly segments and entertain people, but at the same time be real and share like what's actually happening in sports, and have that humor and entertainment and still seriousness. That's kind of what I want to do. So what about you guys?
Cassie, what's in your future?
Funny you should ask. So my capstone teacher asked me this question every single Tuesday, and I still don't have an answer for him. But I would say probably something in social media, I think, is what I'm leaning more towards. I think I started out my college career like, oh, I want to be on camera, because I did some TV in high school. I was in like our TV production program, and I knew that from then that I definitely wanted to do journalism. And then I was like, wait a minute, I also really love sports. I can just kind of put them two together. And so I was really, thanks for the thanks for the diagram. Thanks for the acting out. Why don't you act out this whole story? So I knew from then that I wanted to do sports journalism, but from that point on, I was really only doing like on-air stuff. So I was like, okay, I want to be an anchor. I want to be on air. I want to be a sideline reporter. I want to be Erin Andrews and Laura Rutledge. I was like, that's the goal. But then as I was kind of, going through college, I quickly realized I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. It's just so much pressure and I'm not very good at it either. I quickly realized I'm not very good on air. Like if I'm reading from a script, I have a very blank stare. So I was like, maybe that's not the best face to be on TV. It's just like reading a script. It was really bad. Like my teacher in high school was like, the golden rule of this class is to not look like Cassie on air. Like it was actually a problem. And he said it very jokingly. He said it very jokingly and lovingly.
I would cry still though.
Well, not in those exact words, but he's something along the lines of like, the golden rule of this class is to make sure your face is fine and make sure you look entertaining, not like Cassie with her stone cold stare into the camera. Like people used to have to, when I was on air, jump around behind the camera to try to make me laugh and smile. Exactly. So every single time there had to be a designated person standing behind the camera making me like giggle or smile or like have a bigger grin on my face because it was so bad. Anyway, I'm getting way off track. But
we got time.
Yeah, no, we do have time. So I got to like my sophomore and junior year after you get through like all those required classes and you get into more of like the what do you actually want to take and what do you want to like gear your career more towards. And I started like kind of leaning more towards the social media aspect of the sports journalism world and just kind of I like the idea of bridging like the gap between players and fans. Cause I feel like as fans don't always see sport, like athletes as actual people. They see them as like their favorite athlete and like they only exist on the field or on the court or on the diamond or whatever you want to call it. But
I love the diamond.
But so I feel like social media is like a great bridge for those kinds of interactions, and it kind of gives people the opportunity to see these people in the locker rooms and being silly and outside of work, I guess you could say. So I started leaning more towards that, and I think that's definitely the direction I'm going in right now. Obviously, the sports world is a very lucrative world, and it's the career choices and career paths you have here are much different than any other place. So I feel like even though you have that dream or have a dream, that it might not start out that way, which I'm okay with. I'm okay with going anywhere, doing anything to start the career. But that's where I would like to end up eventually for sure. I think that's pretty much my spiel. Diane.
Nature slay. Okay, yeah. So it's kind of funny actually because I went into college as a sports management major thinking that I wanted to do front office stuff in sports where it's kind of just like, like day-to-day stuff. I liked sports. I also really liked marketing. Went through that a little bit, realized really quickly though that I had a little bit, if you all could not tell, of a brighter, bigger personality. I really like,
Diane's not meant for an office cubicle.
No,
Diane is meant to be
so I was like, maybe this is not a good idea. I also hit accounting and that did not go very well. Anyways, but everything happens for a reason.
That's how you know you're a journalism major if you can't do math. I think that should be an entrance exam, like a math exam, and if you fail it, you're in.
Yeah,
because I don't know a single journalism major that can like do calculus.
Yeah. And I was thinking, I want to work in sports. Why am I having to figure out accounting? Which I get if you want to go accounting, whatever. So I actually switched my major to sports journalism one semester before transferring to US. So I had to take Spanish 1 and 2 in one semester. It was really interesting. It went great though. Transferred in perfectly. And when I transferred in, I immediately wanted to get involved. So I heard about ESPN Gainesville, and of course with the logo ESPN, I was like, oh, I need to do this ASAP Rocky. So I sent an email.
Dude, ESPN is everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because they don't just call it, like, it's not just ESPN Gainesville, like, for the name. Like, we are a direct flagship station of ESPN. So, like, the opportunities are there.
Right. And so I was like, obviously, the sports journalism major, like, that's the one thing you want to get involved in is ESPN, all that stuff. So I got involved with ESPN Gainesville, and it was really great. I really liked it because I realized really quickly I wanted to be on air, and I was obviously given a ton of opportunity to do so. My favorite thing is interacting with other people. So even I'm not 100% sure what angle of on air that interests me most. I just know it's not anchoring because I tried it and I realized really quickly I can't read off a teleprompter. Um,
Tell
and-
me,
At least you
oh yeah. So I realized too through my journey at the University of Florida, I maybe have dyslexia. So I realized when I was reading the little teleprompter, I was having an extra hard time with it. And my teacher actually helped me figure out that it was most likely because I have dyslexia. I did a screening, came back positive. So if anyone else out there has that and you think that you can't go into journalism because it's all writing and stuff, I promise you can. If I can do it,
if Diane can do
like
it.
I promise. So I'm like veering off, but basically what I like to do through that story is I figured out I really like on air, but I like organic on air, meaning like sidelining. Yeah, I like that, but I really like this type of setting, which is why we created the sports lab. It's very casual. It's I could sit down, I just get to talk about sports. Something I'm really good at is talking, and so I can't stop.
certified yappers.
Yes,
We are all yappers. There's one thing that you learn from this podcast is that we will
Yes.
yap.
Yeah, so like my dream job would definitely be like kind of like either a podcast like this, like that's really big and we could just sit and talk, or a talk show for sports. I also though really do like social media as well. I've had a little bit of experience there. I worked for a sports media company for a little bit, helped grow that. I did stuff for a sorority. May or may not have went a little viral there, but like it's fine.
A little. Diane literally did the social media stuff for a semester and had like 8 multi-million view TikToks. Like, be so for real.
Yeah, Cassie and I actually went viral too on my personal account for
That's a story for
that's
another
for
day.
time.
We'll
Yeah,
talk
so
about that later.
yes, but it's kind of funny because then going back to like recruiting at the University of Florida for their football team, that's a little bit of operations right there, which is right back to social sports management, right where I started. So I've kind of touched base with operations, social media, and on air, and all those I'm totally excited to dip my toes in the professional world. I'm totally open to all those spots, but that's kind of like where I'm gearing towards. So.
Yeah. I feel like it's really easy to just kind of be able to dip your toes in certain stuff like that nowadays because of social media. Like you can have your own career on social media completely separate from your actual career.
Mm-hmm.
So the world's definitely changing.
Yeah.
And there's so much advice out there, and that's what we hope this podcast will be an outlet for people who want to be in sports or want to change something in sports. We'll have people from all different areas of the industry on here to teach us and teach you what you can do to break into different areas of sports and how to succeed, because we have a lot of successful friends and a lot of successful people in our network that are great resources for everyone they meet.
I think we're also just
Go ahead.
I was gonna say we're also just kind of starting out our careers too, so they get to kind of see the process of us going through job applications and interviews and graduating college and doing something else. So I hope this podcast lasts for a very long time, so they'll be able to follow us from college into professional life, which would be really cool.
And once we have our set and you see us on ESPN with our show every morning, you'll be like, wow, I'm on YouTube back in the day.
When Pat McAfee's a guest on our show.
Or we're guests on, I'll gladly be a guest on Pat's show any day of the week. Oh my God.
Pat, hire us. We work for free. If you just want
literally. Have us on.
I will dog sit your corgi. Like, I'll do anything.
We'll tag you in this. Don't worry. You'll see it.
We'll fly ourselves there. We'll pay our own hotel. Like, if you just give us the opportunity to sit on the stage with you, that's all.
Box outside your studio. Like, I'll do it.
Yeah, we can zoom in. We can zoom in too. I mean, clearly we know how to zoom. So
if Aaron Rodgers can zoom from his car, so can we.
Well, all right. Well, I think that's it for today's episode. And thank you for tuning in. And as always, even though this is the first one, I'll say that. As always, thanks for watching Name 5 Players. We'll see you later.